gladly wish you a Merry Christmas from AFA Today, a decked-out holiday Times Square that is sitting under a layer of ice. If you're watching on the AFA channel, that's what we've been contesting with here in New York for the last few days. And, man, the stuff spread all over Dallas-Fort Worth Airport was closed this morning. When's the last time they've been closed due to icy weather? Anyway, it's that time of year. And we're glad to be here with you and looking forward to the completion of the Advent season where we celebrate the joy that has come to be with us. We're talking about this study that's been done, and the writer for the conservative website, The Daily Caller, that brought it up, to me is the way he writes, I wouldn't want my daughter in a room with him because he's basically, it sounds very libertarian actually to my ears, but hey, it's just freedom. It's not hurting anybody. Don't bother me. That's kind of stupid. Can I say stupid? If a man thinks that way, then he is genuinely a moron. You don't just go, well, liberty is liberty, and I should have the right to do whatever I want as long as nobody, gets hurt. No, actually, there's very few decisions you're ever going to make in life that have zero effect on anyone else. So that's almost an impossible scenario to begin with. But then to just openly say, hey, we enjoy it. We're not bothering anybody. That's kind of ridiculous. And I don't want that argument coming from our side of the discussion in any way. So I'm denouncing that mindset straight out. But I'm also not completely opposed to his main point, which is that the government seems to be getting increasingly involved in things that I think it's very hard to identify. You're going to try to scientifically, for legal purposes, define what an objectifying gaze is. How do you do that? Well, men do that when they know when they're doing it, and the woman knows when they're doing it. Well, okay, maybe that's true. That's why I want to ask the ladies who are listening, is this something you want handled through the vehicle of law? Have you been grotesquely violated or offended by someone who looked at you inappropriately, and how did you react to that? Especially if you're a person of faith. Brent and I were just talking in the break. Women of faith are probably the most at risk of these jerks, because women that don't observe faith and don't have faith-oriented values, biblical values governing their appearance and modesty and everything else, they're not going to really do much of anything to dissuade men who want to give them attention in that manner. It's just, it doesn't bother them. Morality is all fluid, just doesn't. So it's only if you have standards to begin with that you're even more enticing because you are all covered up. And so the man's going, hey, wow, man, so wonder what's under there. 888-589-8840, 888-589-8840. How do you handle it? What have you been in a situation where it was so uncomfortable you had to take action, and what did you do? Let's start with Rebecca in Oregon. Hi, Rebecca. Welcome. You're on AFA Today with Kevin McCullough.
Hi, Kevin. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for your call.
So I have a couple comments, obviously, to weigh in on about this issue.
Okay.
I am a conservative Christian. I have my own ministry. But also, my ministry focuses on victims of human trafficking here in the United States.
Okay.
So to hear some of the comments that just came through that strong women are the only ones that don't get raped was really, really horrific to hear. I also see this.
Well, Rebecca, hold on a second. Let me try to explain what I believe that caller meant. Not that I'm defending the viewpoint, but I believe what they're saying is, and I think there's some scientific evidence to this, that if a woman carries herself with a certain vibe of "don't mess with me," that she is X percentage less likely to be confronted by someone sexually. And in fact, when women fight back, or when they do the "don't mess with me" thing, when the attacker starts, the likelihood that he is ultimately successful goes down exponentially. Now, I don't know the exact numbers, but I know I've heard that there's some evidence to that as way of prevention for women, saying, don't look vulnerable, don't look like a possible victim if you are out by yourself in a dangerous place.
Yeah, and working in a culture where we see attacks happen all the time, our evidence and research shows that it really doesn't matter if there's someone out there that wants to hurt and violate women, then they will. Definitely certain types might be targeted than others. But I wanted to just call in for a couple reasons. One was I definitely agree that the government is getting way too much in control of trying to make a law that men can't stare at women. But I do really agree with what you're saying, how we need to raise up a different generation. Mm-hmm. And I believe that part of that starts in the school with changing the mindset of the culture of our up-and-coming generation. And when we have, like you said, things on TV, music, the top number one the top number one movie was Hangover last year. Hangover, the movie that promotes purchasing prostitution all over the... when
Rebecca,
we're culture,
hold on a second. I don't believe Hangover was the top box office grossing film of last year.
2009, it was the number one box office hit.
I don't believe that's accurate. It may have been the top grossing rated R movie, but I don't believe it topped any of the cartoon features that came out that year. And the reason that I say that is I work in the film industry, and we monitor this stuff fairly closely. And there are...
could be adult, could be rated R, absolutely. But it was number one in 2009 in some arena, which means our culture, up-and-coming generation, is watching movies that are promoting this rape culture. And if we keep a stance like only victims that are weak get raped and boys will be boys, then we're going to continue to feed that. That's why things like human trafficking have surpassed in our country gun sales. It's the second to illegal drugs. It's because of the culture and the mindset, and quite frankly, of an older generation that is condoning boys being boys behavior and not sticking up for women. And I'm not saying the government should get involved by any means, but we definitely need to start looking at the realities of what has taken place and where it's got our culture today.
Right. Well, Rebecca, I appreciate that perspective, and I think it's a valuable one. What is there a specific ministry that you work with in the trafficking stuff, overseas or domestic? I'm actually plugged into some that are involved here in North America, and I'm just wondering if we happen to have any mutual friends.
We might, yeah. My ministry is RebeccaBenderMinistries.com, and I am a consultant and published author and national recognized expert in human trafficking, work with building curriculum with IJM and
I know the folks at IJM really well. So good. And Love 143 is also a great group out of the Midwest, and we could talk about that for some time. But thanks for the call. And I think that I want to go back to the point though. I do think, and I've talked to Lovely Bride about this, and she it's funny because she's just a knockout to look at. I mean, I think she could be a professional model in every sense of the word. But she was always like, in college nobody really ever asked me out. In high school nobody ever really asked me out. And I'm going, do you think it might have been because you are so intimidating? And she's like, what do you mean? I said, well, you scare people. And she goes, what does that mean? And I said, well, anytime we get together with the Baldwins, and Stephen and Kenya are close friends of ours, Stephen tells me all the time, man, he's just afraid not to be on his best behavior at all times when he's in her presence. And I'm like, actually, that's a really good thing. So whatever that is, I want you to teach that to our daughters. But I think there is a certain degree of, if you are a strong woman and you project that strength, I think it may not stop 100% of all attacks and anything else. What Rebecca was saying, I absolutely believe to be true. If someone's wholly dedicated to hurting you in this society, they unfortunately are oftentimes successful. But as a casual victim to such crime, if you demonstrate strength, if you do fight back, if you have a vibe about you when you're out and about your business, it's like, don't mess with me. That actually, I think, works in your favor. I'm not saying it prevents everything, but I want my daughters to learn that. If I am ever blessed with them, I want them to get whatever that is that their mom has, because I think it's going to be an important piece of their development. All right, let's go to Tennessee, where Melissa is on hold. Melissa, welcome. Thank you for being there. You're on with Kevin McCullough.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
You're on the air, Melissa. Go right ahead.
Yes, I was just wanting to make a comment about...
Go right ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I was just wanting to make a comment about what the other ladies were saying because I work in the construction field.
Oh, wow.
Now,
So I bet you get more than a few looky-loos out there.
I do. Now, I work out in the field. I don't work in the office. I actually work out in the field and do get dirty, and I'm right there with the guys. And I get respect. It's because the way I present myself.
And what do you think you do in particular that causes them to be on their better behavior when they're around you?
I guess because the way I present myself to them as far as
you're no nonsense.
Physically, I have a sticker on my hard hat that says "Real women love Jesus."
They're not going to go anywhere near the Jesus lady.
But, I mean, they do. I mean, you know, sometimes I go on different jobs, and I think they try to test me. And when they realize that, well, okay.
Nope, she's the real deal. Then they drop it all together.
That's right. And I have 3 daughters, and they're very strong and very outspoken. And you can be that way and still be a lady. And
Absolutely. I was talking about my bride. There is not a more feminine creature on the planet, but she has this incredible "don't mess with me" vibe that I think should be bottled and sold to every father for every daughter on the planet. Let's go to Arkansas and speak with Candy next. Hi, Candy. Welcome. You're on AFA Today with Kevin McCullough.
Hi, good afternoon. I just have a thought, just a simple thought. I remember you were talking about your mom being on the bicycle. And
Yes.
I remember growing up, I was probably 10 years old, and there was a particular person that drove past my house and would leer. I mean, I was young enough, but I still knew what that was. And so speaking of that, I think that it speaks of their character for certain. But I think to try to legalize that is almost like a witch hunt. And to try to quantify, I mean, where do you draw the line? It's just absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, I think that it's certainly, I don't think anybody's arguing, Candy, that it's not a problem. I think what we're discussing is how are we going to get that to be changed? And I'm not sure that criminal penalties and enforcement, when we've got people arguing to let drug dealers out of prison because it's not a serious enough crime, how are you going to classify someone who stares at women in inappropriate ways?
Exactly.
Here's the other thing I think, and I didn't get into this, but I think if men sheriffed themselves a little more, meaning you're with a woman, you see a man looking at her, or you see a man looking at a woman in an inappropriate way as a man in that experience, you draw attention to it. You bring them into accountability. You lay the smack down if necessary. Hey, we don't do that here. Stop. I mean, putting the immediate kibosh on it, I think, because there was a time when fathers did that with their sons, right? No, son, we don't do that. That's not what men in this family are about. But we don't have those conversations anymore because we don't have fathers in the home anymore. So that's part of the problem. The other half of the problem is we've been told that women are in charge of everything, and so we can't, have any decision made, on our own, which we need to empower men to think and to behave and to discern appropriately. But yeah, there's multiple ways to sheriff this that I don't know that creating a criminal code is going to correct. Let's go to Terry in Indiana. Hi, Terry.
Hey, Kevin. How are you doing today?
I'm good. I appreciate you being here. What's your thought on this?
Well, I've got a couple of little thoughts that ran through my brain as I've been listening. I've been married for 10 years. My wife and I'm 29 years old. I got married at 19. My wife and I obviously walking around the store and whatnot. If she ever thought that I was looking inappropriately or staring or anything like that, she soon told me so. And now there's no point even looking because I love my wife. We've been together for so long and wouldn't want anybody else. It's who God That's why God put us together.
Amen.
But a couple of thoughts that went through my mind was how do you go criminal wise with an intent of a look? If you look at someone, how can you say what the intent is it's going to do to the brain? I mean, if a female smiles at me, do I get to sue her because she smiled at me? Why do people dress to impress and show, body parts and whatnot and this, that, and the other, and then complain when they
well,
get
that's an interesting point, Terry, and I appreciate that because, and that's not something that Rebecca addressed. Look, I'm of the old school that says no always means no. There's no question about it. But is it of any wonder that the more that certain age groups of women dress with more and more revealing clothes over the period of time? I think here's what I'm getting myself into a corner here. Here's what I want to say. I think it's very difficult to do one thing, and that is to have a man think entirely honorable thoughts about a woman who's mostly naked in front of him. I think that's hard. I think from human nature that's hard. But I think an honorable man will avert his eyes and will purposefully make choices to look and think elsewhere. The problem as I see it, and I'll let the women address the modesty issue and how we're going to raise our girls and make sure that they're all clothed. In the McCullough house, when I have a daughter someday, she will be dressed when she leaves the house. But at the end of the day, I think men need to be growing their character in such a way that ultimately all of the choice they have control of, meaning I can look another way, I can think about another thing. I don't have to give in to that. I'm Kevin McCullough. I hope that you'll be with us every day this week. Fred Jackson in for me for the next couple, and we'll see you again on Friday. Kevin McCullough, AFA Today. Thanks for being here.